Is Harry's visa at risk? Is the Sussex brand falling apart? And are their children's titles being used to make money? The answers might surprise you. Let us get straight into it. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, subscribe right now because we cover royal stories with depth, balance, and genuine analysis that you will not find everywhere else. Let us start with the story that refuses to go away: Harry's United States visa situation. To understand this properly, we need to go back to the beginning. When Harry and Meghan relocated to the United States in 2020, Harry applied for and received the appropriate immigration documentation to live in the country. That process, like any visa application process, requires applicants to answer a series of questions honestly and accurately. Now here is where it gets complicated. In his memoir Spare, published in January 2023, Harry wrote openly and in considerable detail about his past use of various substances including cocaine, cannabis, and magic mushrooms. He described these experiences in a way that went well beyond a passing acknowledgement. He wrote about them as genuine and significant parts of his personal history. For most people reading the book, that level of honesty was either admirable or irrelevant. But for a specific group of people, particularly those focused on U.S. immigration law, it raised a very pointed and very serious question. U.S. visa applications ask specifically about past drug use. If an applicant has used drugs, they are required to disclose that. Failing to disclose it accurately is not a minor administrative error. It is a potentially serious legal issue that can have significant consequences for an applicant's immigration status. The Heritage Foundation, a conservative policy organization based in Washington, filed a legal request to see Harry's immigration records. They wanted to know whether his visa application accurately reflected the drug use that he later described so openly in his book. Now, and this is really important to understand, we do not know what Harry put on his visa application. That information has not been publicly released. It is possible that he disclosed everything accurately and completely. It is possible that the application was handled through legal channels that addressed the complexity of his situation. We simply do not know. What we do know is that the release of those immigration records has been delayed. Officials announced that the documents would not be made public until after King Charles's state visit to the United States, a decision that immediately sparked its own debate about whether diplomatic considerations were influencing what should be a straightforward legal process. The Heritage Foundation missed their own deadline to receive the documents, and the new timeline pushes everything back to mid-year at the earliest. So where does this leave things? Realistically, and most legal analysts agree on this, it is extremely unlikely that Harry would face any kind of dramatic enforcement action as a result of this situation. The United States government has enormous discretion in how it handles immigration matters, and it is very hard to imagine a scenario where a member of the British royal family is publicly and dramatically removed from the country. But here is the thing. The question itself matters. Because if the rules are applied differently to powerful and prominent people than they are to ordinary individuals, that is a legitimate public interest concern that deserves to be examined honestly and transparently. That is not about targeting Harry specifically. That is about the principle that immigration law should apply equally to everyone. And that principle is one that people across the political spectrum can agree on regardless of how they feel about Harry and Meghan personally. The delay in releasing the records has added another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. And until those records are actually made public and examined properly, this story is not going anywhere. Now let us talk about Australia, because this is where things get really interesting. Harry and Meghan's visit to Australia generated enormous media coverage, both before and during the trip. There were protests. There were petitions. There were debates about taxpayer-funded security. There were questions about the purpose and the funding of the visit. But perhaps the most telling thing about the Australia trip was not what happened during it. It was the public reaction, or in many cases the absence of a reaction to it. There is a video that circulated widely on social media during the trip. In the video, a woman is sitting on Bondi Beach, writing in her journal. Harry and Meghan's entourage, a large group of security personnel, assistants and media handlers, approaches along the beach. And the woman simply continues writing. She does not look up. She does not react. She is completely and utterly unbothered. Now, one person's reaction on a beach does not tell us everything about how an entire country feels about a visiting couple. That would be an oversimplification. But the image resonated so strongly with so many people because it captured something that a lot of Australians seemed to be feeling during the visit. A sense of, why are they here? What is this actually about? And why should we care? The Australia trip combined several different elements. There were hospital visits and charitable engagements. There were meetings with community groups and individuals affected by tragedy. And there were also paid commercial events, a premium wellness retreat hosted by Meghan, and a paid speaking engagement for Harry at a mental health conference. Now, as we have discussed in previous videos, there is nothing inherently wrong with earning money through speaking and events. Many public figures do this. It is a legitimate way to generate income. The debate, and this is where public opinion becomes genuinely divided, is about how these activities are presented and framed. When paid commercial activities are presented alongside charitable engagements in a way that blurs the line between the two, when the overall package is presented with the visual language and the ceremonial tone of an official royal tour, people start asking questions. Are the charitable elements genuine expressions of a desire to do good, or are they providing a kind of cover for what is fundamentally a commercial and financial operation? And here is the honest answer. It is probably both. Most public figures who combine philanthropy with commercial activity are genuinely motivated by both a desire to do good and a need to generate income. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, but transparency matters enormously. And when the balance between the two feels unclear or inconsistent, when what is being said publicly does not fully align with what is visibly happening, that is when trust starts to erode. The Australian public's reaction, which was notably cooler than perhaps Harry and Meghan's team had anticipated, suggests that the current approach to presenting these tours is not fully landing with audiences outside their core supporter base. That is an important signal, and whether or not it is acknowledged and acted upon will tell us a great deal about the direction the Sussex brand is heading. Let us now talk about something that I think is at the heart of many of the challenges Harry and Meghan are facing: the credibility question. Both Harry and Meghan have positioned themselves as advocates and campaigners on a range of important issues: mental health, online safety, children's welfare, women's empowerment. These are genuinely important causes that deserve serious attention and serious advocacy. But effective advocacy requires more than a platform and a personal story. It requires research. It requires solutions. It requires the ability to engage with complexity and to offer something beyond personal experience and personal narrative. And this is where, in the eyes of many observers, including some who are broadly sympathetic to Harry and Meghan, there is a gap between the ambition and the execution. Consider how other high-profile advocates approach these issues. When public figures with genuine credibility in a particular space speak about mental health or child welfare, they typically come armed with research. They cite studies. They reference programs that are working. They propose specific policy changes. They offer something concrete and actionable. Compare that to the approach that Harry and Meghan have sometimes taken, which has been more focused on personal experience and personal narrative than on research-backed solutions and specific recommendations. Personal stories are powerful and important. They humanize issues and they connect with audiences emotionally. But they are not sufficient on their own to build the kind of long-term credibility that leads to genuine and lasting impact. The comparison with Princess Catherine, now the Princess of Wales, is instructive here. Catherine has built her early years advocacy work over many years on a foundation of commissioned research, partnerships with academic institutions, and specific program recommendations. When she speaks about early childhood development, she can point to tangible work that her foundation has funded and supported. That approach, slower, less dramatic, more focused on substance than on personal narrative, has built genuine credibility in the field. For Harry and Meghan to be taken as seriously as they clearly want to be taken in the advocacy space, they need to make a similar shift. More research, more solutions, more concrete and actionable recommendations. Less focus on personal grievance and personal narrative. That transition is entirely possible. But it requires a different approach than the one that has characterized much of their public activity to date. Now let us talk about something that has generated a huge amount of conversation: the question of the children's titles and how they are being used. Archie and Lilibet both hold royal titles. Archie is Prince Archie and Lilibet is Princess Lilibet. These titles were formally confirmed following the death of Queen Elizabeth in September 2022, when the rules around succession changed. Now, the existence of those titles is not controversial in itself. They are the children's by right of birth and succession. What has become controversial is how those titles appear to be being used in a commercial context. Products associated with the Sussex brand have been marketed in ways that reference or imply the children's royal status. This has led to a genuinely important and legitimate debate about the appropriate boundaries between royal titles, which carry constitutional significance and public weight, and commercial brand building. And here is where it gets particularly interesting from a public perception perspective. During the Oprah Winfrey interview in 2021, there was a powerful and emotionally significant moment where the question of Archie's title was raised. It was suggested during that interview that the decision not to give Archie a prince title was connected to concerns about his mixed heritage. That suggestion, which was widely reported and widely discussed, caused enormous damage to the royal family's reputation at the time. However, the factual position is somewhat different from how it was presented. Under the rules that applied at the time of Archie's birth, he would not automatically have received a prince title because those titles were limited to grandchildren of the monarch. Archie was a great-grandchild of Queen Elizabeth. The change in his status came automatically when his grandfather became King Charles, not as a result of any deliberate decision made specifically about Archie. This distinction matters, because if the title situation was presented in a way that was not fully accurate, and if that presentation caused significant reputational damage to the royal family, then the subsequent use of those same titles for commercial purposes raises genuinely serious questions about consistency and integrity. Now, and this is important, children should absolutely not be held responsible for decisions made by their parents. Archie and Lilibet are children. They have no agency in any of this. Whatever one thinks about how their parents have handled these situations, the children themselves deserve to be treated with compassion and respect. But the decisions being made about how their identities are presented and used in public are decisions that will have consequences for the children themselves as they grow older and for the broader debate about the Sussex brand and its relationship with royal identity. Let us be honest about where the Sussex brand actually stands right now. 3 or 4 years ago, the Sussex brand was genuinely powerful. It had global reach. It had enormous media interest. Let us do something that I think is genuinely useful. Let us think about what would actually work for Harry and Meghan if they are serious about building a sustainable and credible future. Because here is the thing. They have real assets to work with. Harry's genuine commitment to veterans' welfare and mental health is not in question. His work founding the Invictus Games created something of lasting value. His own experience with mental health struggles, navigating grief, navigating trauma, navigating the extraordinary pressures of royal life, gives him genuine credibility and genuine connection with audiences who have experienced similar struggles. Meghan has real skills and real interests. Her background in the entertainment industry gives her production and storytelling expertise. Her interest in food, lifestyle, and wellness, however it has been received commercially, reflects genuine passions. And her experience navigating race and identity in a very public and high-stakes environment gives her a perspective that is genuinely valuable if communicated with nuance and honesty. The question is how to channel all of that into something that is perceived as authentic rather than performative, into something that offers real value rather than simply reflecting personal brand building back at itself. A few things that many observers, including some broadly sympathetic to the Sussexes, have suggested would genuinely help. First, more substance and less spectacle. Less focus on carefully choreographed public appearances, and more focus on the actual work being done. Research, partnerships, measurable outcomes, concrete recommendations. Second, more transparency about the commercial elements of their activities. When speaking engagements and paid events are part of a trip, say so clearly. Audiences respect honesty. They are much less forgiving of what feels like obfuscation. Third, a clearer separation between advocacy and commerce. When the two are intertwined in ways that feel uncomfortable, people start to question the motives behind both. And fourth, a genuine and sustained focus on one or two issues rather than a broad and sometimes unfocused engagement with many. Depth over breadth. Expertise over awareness raising. None of these things are impossible. All of them would require a significant shift in approach. But they represent a genuine path to the kind of credibility and impact that Harry and Meghan clearly want to have that we cannot talk about any of this without acknowledging the royal family dimension, because it runs through every single aspect of the Sussex story. The titles, the tours, the commercial brand, the media interest, all of it, every single element, is connected to and in many ways dependent on the royal association. And that creates a fundamental tension that has never really been resolved. Harry and Meghan stepped back from royal duties because they felt that the institution was not working for them. They wanted independence. They wanted the freedom to build their own lives on their own terms. Those are understandable and in many ways admirable desires. But building a commercial brand that relies heavily on royal identity, while simultaneously maintaining distance from, and sometimes publicly criticizing the institution that provides that identity, is a genuinely difficult position to sustain indefinitely. At some point, a clearer choice may need to be made. Either lean into the royal connection more openly and honestly, which would require a different kind of relationship with the institution, or build something that genuinely stands on its own without depending on that connection for its appeal and its commercial value. The current middle ground, benefiting from the royal association while maintaining distance from royal responsibility, is one that many observers believe is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain as public awareness of the dynamics grows. King Charles's state visit to the United States is significant in this context. The fact that Harry's visa records are being delayed until after that visit suggests that diplomatic and institutional considerations are very much still in play. The two stories, Harry's personal situation and the broader relationship between the Sussex family and the Crown, remain deeply and inextricably connected. So, where does all of this actually lead? Let us be honest. Nobody knows for certain. Royal stories have a habit of developing in ways that nobody anticipates. What we can say with reasonable confidence is this. The visa situation will eventually be resolved one way or another. The records will be released. Whatever they show will be examined and debated. And life will go on. The Australia trip has happened. Its legacy, in terms of what it did or did not achieve for the Sussex brand, will become clearer over the coming months as we see whether any of the commercial ventures associated with it generated meaningful returns. The children's titles debate will continue for as long as those titles are used in ways that raise questions about the boundaries between royal identity and commercial brand building. And the broader credibility question, whether Harry and Meghan can successfully transition from a narrative driven by their departure from royal life to something more substantive and sustainable, remains genuinely open. The Birmingham Invictus Games represent perhaps the most significant near-term test. If those games go well, if they generate positive coverage, demonstrate genuine impact, and connect Harry with his core purpose, they could represent a genuine turning point. If they do not, if the controversies around security, politics, and royal attendance overshadow the games themselves, it will be another difficult chapter. The story is far from over. And whatever happens next, it will be worth watching. So there we have it, a full breakdown of everything happening with Harry, Meghan, and all the questions surrounding them right now. Where do you stand on all of this? Do you think the Sussex brand can rebuild its credibility? Do you think the visa situation will have any real consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I genuinely read every single one. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share it with a friend, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss our next one. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.